thrown around like this term that is universal, that everybody suffers from it in exactly the same way. It is like cold and flu symptoms. The symptoms are the same, but the cause is different. If you treat allergies with vitamins or cold and flu medication, or like it's COVID, then you're not going to feel any better. Let's get a little bit diagnostic here. I'll play the doctor, you play the patient. Let me ask you, what are the hidden messages, the little things that you are voicing in your head? Basically, what are your writer's block symptoms? And just even pause this or rewind and look at it again and just think about which ones of these you can check off. And note the number next to them because that's going to be important. If they are of the I am no good variety, or my story is no good variety, or as I was saying, I have written every last thing that I'll ever write that's any good and nothing I will ever write will ever be good again. This is writer's block caused by imposter syndrome, by self-doubt and self-deprecation. This is not helpful at all. And no amount of working on your book is going to fix this. So mindset is hugely important. Let me share with you Margaret Atwood's terminology for writer's block. She calls it a blockage, not a block. And I think that little terminology is better. I've heard lots of different authors say different things. R.L. Stine says it doesn't exist, which I don't think is helpful. As does Shonda Rhimes. She says she decided not to believe in it, not because she actually doesn't believe in it, like R.L. Stine, but because she didn't want to give it power. Marilyn Monroe once said that, I try to remind myself that I have done good work, and I have had moments that were excellent, but the bad is heavier to carry around. And I think that speaks volumes. I want to encourage you to sit down and write down a time that you were happy with what you were written. It doesn't have to be this novel. It doesn't have to be a novel at all. Just something you wrote and you thought, that is good writing. Maybe your questions are, where is it going? Is my character likable? Is the story working? Am I actually funny? Am I actually scary if you're writing a horror? These kinds of questions need a sky view. When we're writing, we tend to be focused word for word, scene for scene. We're not ever stopping and looking at the overall picture. A great way to do this is to read 5 pages out loud to yourself or give them to a trusted friend. If you do choose to give them to a friend, I say make sure you tell that friend the specific thing that you want them to look at. Remember, this is a first draft. Nobody is supposed to see it. But if you can honestly not keep going until somebody tells you you're on the right track, then maybe a trusted friend is the thing to do. I gave mine to Irene, and that was hugely helpful. My friend Irene, who visits with me on this channel and talks writing a lot, did this for me, and it was game-changing. 5 pages, not from the beginning of the novel, not from where you're stuck. 5 pages randomly at some point in the novel. Take those 5 pages consecutively and give them to a trusted friend, asking the one simple question that you are worried about. If this video has been helpful at all, please smash that like button and click subscribe so that this can get out to more writers and help more people like you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. If you're stuck in what happens next, do you know what happens at any point in your story? Maybe you're, as George R. R. Martin says, a gardener or a pantser, as a terminology I like to use, and you don't plot ahead at all. Is there anything you know that needs to happen? If you're writing a love story, have the lovers met yet? If you're writing a horror story, have you had a victim yet? If there are certain things that you know need to happen in those kinds of stories, write that. Just write something. Write something that happens next. You don't have to write this in order. There's no rule. If you're a plotter or a architect, in George R. R. Martin's terms, then sit down and think about the next scene you know. I've got all my scenes on cards. You've seen that. And just pull them down and have a look and see what scene comes next and write that. These are things that are absolutely things that you can do right now in Nano. But I would argue if your symptoms are of the following variety, then you are borrowing from future drafts. You are borrowing problems from the future. That is, if you feel like something's a cliche, if you feel like something's derivative, if you feel like you don't have the exact right sentence at this time, if you feel that you're using too much or too little description, you're showing or telling in a imbalanced way, or you don't know what to call a character, or you don't know the specific term for a medical procedure that's happening in your story and you need to do some research. This is all future draft stuff. And I have, in that workbook, I have also put a little note card where you can jot these things down, which will make it very helpful. And I would highly recommend that when you're putting a note in, that you use the same term, so that when you're in your draft, you can do a replace all when you know it. So if it's a character's name, for example, and you can't think of a good character name, call her Jane or Sally or Red Character 2. Whatever you want to do, but call them the same thing every time. So when you decide that that character is going to be called Clarice, you can do a replace all in a Word document and your work is done for you. The same thing goes with a medical term. Just say insert medical term here. Just med term, med term, med term, med term, and you can replace all. Med term 1, med term 2 if you've got more of them. But keep it simple, keep it memorable, make a note, and then you can hit a replace all in your second draft once you've sat down and done the research. But if you're going to finish this novel in the next fortnight, then you really, really, really need to just keep going to the end and worry about draft 2 later. We've diagnosed which kind of writer's block you have. So which medicine should you take? And for that, you'll need to watch this video here.